This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to The Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, I am here in the very fancy studios of Pod Populi, podcast for the people. I'm at the one in Palm Beach Gardens, which I'm rarely in, but it's very nice. If you have the means, Palm Beach Gardens, it's a place to be. This episode, as I drop it, will be the 400th episode of The Great Love Debate. And it's like, oh, I should do a commemorative thing or whatever. I might get to that. 400 is not really a fancy number. 500 is a fancy number. 250 is a fancy number. 400 is a round number, but I don't know but we are going to do an episode coming up where I kind of look back on the things we were right about, the things we were wrong about, and the things we want to look at a little closer. That's coming up. But people ask me all the time, who listens to The Great Love Debate? Who goes to The Great Love Debate? And our demo is really sort of all over the place. I mean, we have people in their 80s, literally, who write us and listen to the show. We have a lot of people in their 20s who say, you don't know what's going on with us. We did a couple episodes devoted to that. But ground zero for this show and this content and the subject matter of love, sex, dating, relationships is women in their 30s. And I've said on this podcast before, I think that they're some of the best group of women collectively of any group of women. They're a little more grown up. They're a little bit know what they want. They're a little bit more motivated to take life seriously, and they're really on the cusp of finding out who they are, which they will get to in their 40s. But in their 30s, they're really starting to have that conversation with themselves. So I wanted to dive into that group. So if you're a 52-year-old man and you're listening to this, listen up, because you're probably still going to want to date a 36-year-old. And if you're a 24-year-old girl, woman, whatever you want to be called, and you're listening to this, this is the Ghost of Christmas Future. So I brought in two people who really do dive into this demographic and this time in life. They are the hosts of the very fun 30 and podcast, and the 30 and means a whole lot of things. Brittany and Em, how are you?
Oh my gosh, we're great. What an intro. I'm sorry, but I feel like 400 episodes and you invited us, the women in their 30s.
I did.
For the 400, I think that's
I'm
a big deal.
really passionate about it, because a lot of the stuff I get, the women who get the most mad at me for the subject matter on this show are the women in between, say, 35 and 40. That really is sort of the target of where the questions need. You shouldn't only, you could be mad at me, but I raise a lot of questions that a lot of people are afraid to raise. So let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
Let's go back to when you were born 30 something years ago.
Oh my God.
Is there something, you guys are both in your 30s, hence the name of the show, or that would be false advertising. Is there something unique or something radically different about being in your 30s as opposed to in your 20s?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
All the above.
Okay.
Where do we even start about the difference?
Well, let's start. Ramble on. I've done 400 shows. I'm tired, so feel free to carry it.
Do you want to banter?
Sure. I mean,
because when a woman goes from 29 to 30, she's all panicked or whatever, and then at 30, she's like, oh, it's basically the same thing.
Right.
That changes a little bit as the ball gets rolling.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about, the demographic of women in their 20s, kind of looking to us like the ghost of Christmas future. And then the women in their 40s, they know who they truly are. But I think that in your 30s really is when you kind of get to look to the future and take what you've learned in the past and put it all together. In your 20s, I feel like it's almost like survival mode.
You're just figuring things out. You're just like coming out of, like we talked about, college or wherever you're coming from, and you're just kind of going into adulthood, but not an adult yet, still a teenager, and just kind of figuring it all out. Like you get your own apartment maybe, or you have a roommate, and you're still like out there dating. We talked about that, like in the dating scene was pretty much going out to bars or like going out with friends and going out drinking, and that was how you dated
so
and
easy
you met.
then.
Yeah, it was so easy.
You didn't go out with people, you went home with people.
Exactly. But
and
also,
you drank 4 to 5 times a week,
That's
maybe
right.
6 or 7. I don't know.
But the vibe
Sometimes.
was also like the reason why it wasn't just for the fun. The reason why we're doing all of that is because I feel like, especially for us in our 20s, especially those late 20s, when you start hitting like 27, 28, 29, that's the first time that I think I really started to feel that societal like pressure and just family pressure and friend pressure to like hit a certain milestone, get married, find the guy, do all of these things. And that pressure I feel like is wild when you're in your 20s.
You're totally right. This societal and familial and personal pressure that comes with getting into your 30s, where you have to think about, are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? Where, I mean, you're constantly doing that. We travel a great Love Debate live show all over the place, as you guys know. When we still do shows in the South, when we go to places like Charlotte and Nashville and Atlanta, if you get to 30 and you get divorced, the marriage failed. If you get to 30 and you've never gotten married, you failed. That is still the perception in a big part of the country,
like the
that a lot of women, there's still a lot of that, like what is wrong with you, whatever. And then when you get into the 30, 35, 36, 37, even if you are in a relationship, even if you're, then you're thinking about like, is it time to have kids, or what am I doing, or am I putting my career ahead of it? There are a lot of questions that it is no picnic for the women being in that age, especially because the sweet spot for a man, the greatest time to be a man, is like 36 to 48.
Sure.
The pool of possibilities that group has to pick from is pretty much anywhere from 21 to 55.
Yeah.
The world is his oyster. So to try and get somebody, quote unquote, your age to get in the same headspace as you guys, it's a real tough bullseye to hit.
Do you want to know what the magic part is, though? What? So the magic part about when you are a woman and you do actually get into your 30s and you feel all of that pressure and you are still single, something magic happens, I think, when you hit maybe like 33, 34, 35, you stop giving a shit the same way that you did. Like that is and that I think, Britt, you can jump off this, but that comes from having so much more life experience and seeing other people's social media reels of their relationship, and everyone looks so happily married and all this stuff, and you know
they're miserable.
Oh my God.
We talk about that. We're like, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and you only see everyone's highlight reel.
Right.
And it's so funny because I just had a girl reach out to me on Instagram, 27 years old, and she wants to come on to the podcast. And she said, I just feel like I'm relating with a lot of women in their late 20s because I don't have it all figured out yet and feel like I should. I'm like, girl, I'm 36 and I don't have it figured out.
Right.
And she was like, oh my God, like didn't know, I was 36. And I'm like, but I remember when I was 27, it was so much different, but I still felt that pressure of, not knowing what I'm doing, where I'm going with my career, relationship, like just felt so different. And confidence was on a different level. And coming back, even at between 30 and 33, I was talking to Lauren the other day. And when I was 30, she was like, oh, but you were so much more mature then or something. I forget what we were talking about. And I was like, Lauren, that was 5 years ago. Cause we were talking about someone who's 28 and, we have different maturity levels. She sees things differently. And I was like, Lauren, my mindset now versus even when I was 33, like I remember
and you can take like a 26-year-old, right, for perspective, and you can ask a 26-year-old, why don't you remember what you were like when you were 16, 10 years ago?
Right.
And it is
they're horrified at it.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
You're like, I was a baby. I didn't know any.
I was throwing corn at people's houses. Like,
right. I was toilet papering. I was just learning how to drive.
Right.
Mentally, emotionally, I would say that I feel the same when I'm looking back as a 36-year-old, looking back at my 26-year-old self. But the worst part was that I thought I had it all figured out. I felt all of those pressures, and I let all of those pressures really guide where I was going in my life for career, for relationship, for family, for friendships, all of those things that you accumulate kind of in college. And if you haven't learned those lessons yet, if you have, kudos to you, like you're an amazing 26-year-old. I didn't. Looking back, it's a joke that I felt like I was expected to make such huge life decisions at 26 years old, because the person I am at 36, I trust myself so much more now.
In your 20s as a woman, you're in this sort of blur of bridesmaidsness, and all the people around you are jumping out and dropping off whatever. Yeah, and it's terrible. So in your 30s,
18 weddings.
No matter what decade, weddings. Jesus, that's expensive too.
I gave every
I didn't know you had other friends.
Sorry. Hate to.
Who are the 18 people?
But, hate to break it. I mean, I went to 18 weddings, maid of honor 3 times, and I was in probably 8 or 9 weddings.
How many of those marriages are still together?
Oh, good question.
Ooh, I would say all of them except my own.
Oh, okay. That's a different podcast.
We already said the
all
divorce rate is 50%.
Yeah.
And I was like,
but you bring up like things figure out. Every decade you figure out a little more, but you never figure it all out, which is, I think, is part of the fun. So you look back on very few people that I know when they get in their 30s or their 40s or their 50s, if they had a chance to wave a wand and go back and do it again, they're more likely to be horrified. Like, oh my God,
Pass
right?
Forever.
Than that. There's a certain confidence, I don't know if you look at, you guys are super fit, so it may not apply to you, but if you look back at like the 24-year-old version of yourself, there's a confidence probably missing that makes you more attractive and makes you more appealing to, I think, date, I would think, right?
Depending on the quality of the man, yeah. Some men really just, they want the deer at the end of the doe that has the broken leg at the end of the tribe of the girls who are walking. You've never heard that?
I'm sorry.
What dating site is that?
Okay, so no. It's
is this a movie?
It's not a dating site. It's like
it
this
must
theory.
be on.
When guys and girls are like drunk at the bar, sometimes there are specific types of guys that look for the drunkest girl, the girl who with the equivalent of like the broken leg in the pack,
right.
Who it's an easy kill. It's like the easy fish in the bill.
Sometimes that person's 47 though.
It's true. It's true. So I think it depends on the person, but I would say a higher quality man, yes. If you tried to date, I would say, just speaking for myself, if you tried to date me, a high quality man trying to date me at 24, 25, 26 would be very turned off by my extreme lack of self-awareness and confidence.
I think it's easier to date somebody who knows who she is and knows what she wants, as long as she communicates that information to us.
Sure.
The challenge for the men is we have no idea who you are, what you want, or everything.
We didn't either back then.
You're like, I'm 36, I shouldn't have to train you.
Yeah, but
you should have to train us. You have no fucking idea.
I mean, I think communication is always going to be something that's so important, no matter what age you are. But I think the confidence level, you're right. The confidence level in a post-college setting, I do agree, for women is very, very different for a lot of people. It was for me. I was a very low self-esteem, low confidence person and made choices just based on what was happening in my life and where I was supposed to go. What about you, Brett? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I didn't really have full confidence in myself because I was still trying to figure out what I was doing in my career. At that time, like what defined me or what I thought defined me was my career and the person that I was with. So like, I know when we spoke on our podcast, like the person I wanted to date, obviously I liked them, but I always wanted to be with that cute, popular guy. Like that's what made me
photo op.
Yeah.
Like
and
a power
I
couple.
said they are the worst. That's why I'm single. But honestly, that's what at the time, and that's immaturity. Like I was looking for just the guy that was cute and popular and this and that. And I didn't know what I was doing with my career. I was so focused on being in a relationship that it kind of, and I lacked the self-confidence.
Yeah.
But now I have the self-confidence, and I'm going to disagree and say that scares a lot of guys, because a lot of guys want, that scares them. I think.
Like intimidation. You mean intimidation?
Yeah.
Guys.
Like, and I feel like I do intimidate some guys, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
That's because you could beat them up.
Maybe.
You might, but what was there a moment, an incident, a day that flipped, that you got confident or that you realized that was important? What changed that? What was the fork in the road that you found that?
I think when I had like some really bad breakups and I realized that I was putting so much focus into that other person, and like when they didn't want me, I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? Am I not pretty enough? Am I not funny enough? And it was always what's wrong with me. And then at one point I was just like, it really started to affect my mental health. And I was like, okay, this is what I needed to stop, because I got sick. And, I started working out. I focused on like my mental health, my physical health. And I started reading a lot, like self-help, I guess, whatever, and started focusing on my own personal growth. And I kind of like stopped with the dating. And I think I was lost. And I know that sounds very, I guess, cliche, but I think a lot of people do feel lost. Like you feel like you have to have it all figured out. And the truth is you don't have to have it all figured out. None of us really have it all figured out. And if you do, going back to your point, like there's no, I mean, if we had it all figured out yet, we wouldn't know what to do.
Like that's the sport out of it.
We'd be bored.
Yeah, we'd be bored. So for anyone
you're not leading an interesting or challenging enough life if you have it all figured out.
Exactly. So for anyone, if you look at people, especially on like Instagram, and you're like, they have it all together, they have it all figured out. No way.
You stopped looking for confidence, satisfaction, validation in a relationship and said, I'm going to hit the pause button on the boys and get myself together, get my place where I want to be?
I stopped looking for validation from other people. Right. And I started focusing on myself and what made me happy. And that ultimately was the game changer. And I just slowly built my confidence up since then. And now, like M says, it grows so much that there was a certain point between, I would say 32 to now, where you just don't give a fuck. And you either like me or you don't. You either agree with me or you don't.
There's huge value in having that in your arsenal.
It's
crazy.
Not
giving a fuck.
Yeah.
The not giving up. Although sometimes I do think it can swing pretty hard in the other direction, where you almost like put those walls up because you don't want anyone to get in, because you've learned all those lessons and you've healed some of those things. And then the thought of somebody coming in and kind of messing it all up again makes people a little scared, justifiably so.
Yeah. It's also hard to put out there that you don't give a fuck. On some levels that's attractive, but on some levels people are like, well, I want you to give a fuck about me and us. And it's dangerous. Like, will they ever give a fuck?
Sure.
I did a whole episode a few back about caring and how that is a really underrated attribute. People that care, and not enough people care about enough things now. And trying to balance that with not caring about a lot of the things that don't matter or that don't bring value to your life, that's always a hard sort of balance.
Sure. I would say for me, similar to her story, but mine came on the heels like post-divorce, because I was married. I married somebody who, super nice guy, looked great on paper, but we just didn't click. We didn't click from the relationship beginning. And it took me an extra like 3-4 years to just even get the confidence to get out of the relationship. And especially when when there's nothing actually wrong, like nobody's doing anything to each other. You just know you're with the wrong person. It is,
it's not going to be happily ever after.
It is so hard to hurt that person, and you're hurting a lot of other people too. But after that experience, I was so excited to get out and date, because I was immediate post-divorce and I was like, heck yeah, like I'm free. I'm back, bitches, but I hadn't learned any of those internal lessons or the emotional lessons about like I didn't want to take the time to like reflect, because it was such a painful experience that I wasn't ready to do that. All I wanted to do was find that person still.
Or you weren't mature enough to do that, to understand why it
totally. So I jumped into like relationship after. I just wanted to give that. I had bottled that love up for so long in like kind of that, wrong relationship, that I was so excited to get out there and date that I was painting these red flags white. I didn't know what I was doing. I was choosing wrong partners, making excuses for them. And after, I think it was like the second or third failed relationship post-divorce, I just had this like straw that broke the camel's back aha moment where I was like, holy shit, this whole time I keep looking at the guys for all these red flags that they have, right? Like, well, he wasn't the right person because of XYZ reason, and we just didn't click and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, the only constant in all of these bad relationships is this person right here, me.
Yeah.
So
and the red flags.
I have the red flags. And so I did the same thing she did. I went into this like period of like isolation and self-discovery. I really started reading a lot of books, started listening to a lot more podcasts. And this actually was like, I mean, it sounds shitty to say, but it was like a magical moment, because it was like really during the height of the pandemic that all of this was happening. And I kind of had the time and the energy to sit and really explore myself and get to know myself and trust myself again.
Well, a little bit too, the pressure's off. You've never been married, right?
Nope.
You don't have to deal with that question. How come you're still single or whatever? You're divorced because you're divorced. Like that is
totally disagree. I think
you
it's
shouldn't.
So much worse.
What is harder to date as a divorced person?
Not that it's harder to date as a divorced person, but I think that if you think that going out there being like, oh yeah, I'm divorced makes you almost like more relatable or people are more understanding of
Less
it.
personal pressure. Like I did it. A lot of people like
but they
trust
look
me,
at
I've never
you,
been married either.
But they look at you and they're like, oh my God, but what happened? But he was such a nice guy and you're such a beautiful girl. And then it gets worse because they're like, one of you must have done something wrong.
Yeah, they want a better story.
They want a better story. And the story that you give them is like, we just weren't in love and I was not going to like
I don't ask why did it end. I want to ask, when did you know it wasn't going to be 50 years? And you're like
6 months in.
Yeah. That I hear
and
that.
I stayed for 6 years.
I hear that more than any other answer.
But I was also very verbal about
6 years?
Yeah.
You were verbal to who?
I didn't even know that.
My partner.
You said, listen, I don't know if this feels right.
Absolutely.
Good for you. And
and
they tried to convince you otherwise?
Yep. Give it time. I had a lot of people around me that I trusted very much, friends, family members, things like that, who saw the goodness in him. And they were like, this is the first like appropriate person that you dated, because I was I had like failed relationships and I was dating people who weren't like, quote unquote, from their perspective, marriage material.
That's the point of your 20s.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Go through all those.
Right.
Inappropriate people.
They were supportive. They wanted me to be happy, but they also wanted me to be realistic about the fact that this partner was coming to the table as like a very like secure person who had a great job, who was a really nice person, who loved me very much. And anytime I would express like, but I don't love this person, the vibe was always like, but what's wrong with you that you don't? Because we all do.
Did you think tomorrow will be the day I wake up and I will feel this thing? Or did you just be like...
Initially I did, but I knew everybody always, you have this voice deep down. You do. You have this intuition. You have this internal knowing.
But you were probably blaming it on yourself.
I sat in therapy for a year and I asked the same question every week, and I would sit there and I would say, what is wrong with me that I cannot love this person the way that they love me? And finally she looked at me and she was like, the real question is, what is wrong with you that you feel like you have to?
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
That you have to figure this out. You don't.
Right.
You just might not love them.
Right.
Yeah. And you had pressure
I'll take
from everyone else.
For that.
You had pressure from everyone else.
It wasn't always direct pressure, but I will say there were a couple people who kind of said things to me who I trusted, and I was in a very low state of confidence, and who would say things like, why can't you just move to the suburbs and just pop out a couple kids and just be normal, Emily?
Yeah, normal. Normal sounds miserable.
Normal. Yeah, that sounds awful. No offense to anyone that's done that.
But if you know me, I didn't value the fact that I was special and that I did like something different, and I didn't have the confidence to own that and say to all these people, you can go and live your lives the best that you can. Leave me alone to live mine. Right. And if you don't like who I'm dating, that's on you, not me. I'm the one that has to wake up next to them every day.
Yeah. Pressure's a tough thing. We have pressure to pay for this fancy Palm Beach Gardens studio here, so I got to take a quick break. But I'm here with Britt and Em, and they are from 30 and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into 30 and a whole bunch of stuff right after this. And we are back. The best, so you consider yourself to be in your mid-30s?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, not late 30s.
No,
okay.
Stop it.
Shut up.
Early 30s.
To those people who are listening in their 20s, and the people in their 40s and 50s are going to be like, oh, silly girls still. What's the best thing about being in your mid-30s?
The confidence.
Confidence, period.
Yeah, I hear that
100%.
all the time.
Self-awareness.
Yep.
Just, that sounds self-respect that you have for yourself. Yeah. I feel like can get easily lost in your 20s. And I feel like in your 30s that's the first time that I ever felt comfortable with who I am as a person, confident in who I am as a person, and like actually wanted to focus on what my purpose was on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
You have time to reflect. Like the 20s is all about learning and like going through and kind of like figuring those things out. And then once you hit 30, you're still kind of figuring it out, but then I don't know, something happens where you're just like, you really stop and you look back and you're just like, if you're not learning, first of all, you need to take what you've gone through and you need to learn from it. You need to reflect the things that have gone wrong, why they've gone wrong, and really invest time in yourself. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that. And that's where you kind of feel lost. And like I talk to a lot of women that do feel like that. They feel lost. They spend so much time caring for other people, whether it be their husband, their kids, et cetera, and they don't know what they want to do. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they want to be. And that's not everyone like really, I want to say cares about that maybe, but it is important. You want to, their, I don't want to say their validation, but like their kids are what make them happy and bring them joy. And like, that's what their purpose is.
You go from husband, wife to mom and dad because the husband, wife isn't that fun once you become mom and dad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately or fortunately, which is why I ask a lot of women, I ask this question. This is when I get into trouble, but I do ask this question. And I'm not saying you guys are the ones who have to answer it, but I ask this women, would you rather be 50 years, love of your life, never been so happy, no kids, or would you rather have 10 years, so-so marriage, 2 kids?
Option A.
Dink.
Option A.
Double income, no kids.
Right.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Now, a lot of women are like, I shouldn't have to choose. Right. You should have both, whatever. So you have to almost, like, when you get in your 30s, you have to decide, am I going to go for the love? Or because I don't trust I'm going to get that, do I want the kids because I will be happy with that? And that is the fork in the road that I get in trouble all the time. Well, so-and-so had kids at 47. Realistically, you have to look at the numbers and the odds and all that. You get into your late 30s, and then you have to decide, when do I pull the parachute on this? And this guy's fine. He'll be a good dad and we'll have 2 kids and I'll worry about the marriage later. Or if it's like, I'm just going to hold out for the love I believe I deserve. And whatever happens, happens. And maybe we have kids and maybe we don't. That is the biggest challenge for most women in their 30s. And they don't like to talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's true.
It's scary. You feel like, I mean, for me, like I forgot for a while that I was 36 and I was like, yeah, I'm 35. And it's like, oh shit. Like I'm on the other end.
And you're
now.
like, I'm in good shape. And so it's no big deal, but
but it's, next year it's 37, then it's 38. And it's like, it's scary because time is not stopping. So if you do want kids, like I kind of feel the pressure that, that we're at that point right now. So
right. And so you have to decide the kind of musical chairs thing. Like, when do I grab the seat? And then if you want lots of kids, like there's different, and if you're dating a guy who's 39 and he wants lots of kids, he's got to do that math too all the time. And the women get mad and they look at the exceptions and, I could freeze my eggs and all that. You still have to be realistic about it.
For sure. Or if you find someone that you really like and they don't want kids.
And they don't want kids, or she might want kids, or,
we've had that.
It happens too. And everybody has the right to change their mind. And everybody, a lot of women at 28 are like, oh my God, I don't have kids. And then they're defined by being their mom, the same thing. So that's the choice that when you get to 35 to 42, which road do I want to go down here? And I'm not saying you can't go down both roads, so don't send me letters here, but you kind of have to been like, listen, I just want to fall in love with this person, and however it works out, because you can get married and not be able to conceive. He might not. There's 100 different ways. You can't just think life's going to present itself in a bow, but you have to make choices on who you're dating. Some people are like, I don't want to date somebody with kids because they might not want to have kids as badly, and all these decisions that you don't necessarily have to make at 23.
Mm-hmm. Which is true, but I will say that for my only issue with the fork is that I don't know that it's that extreme of a choice of, do I settle for a less appropriate, like less in love, less good partner in order just to use that person to have kids? Or do I find the love of my life and live happy for the next 50 years without the ability to have kids? I don't know that it's always that extreme.
But it might push you a little. It might push you a little bit more.
It's on the mind. But I will say that just anecdotally, I would say that we know plenty of people that chose option B, where they looked at the partner that they were with. Mm-hmm. They didn't see a lot of the values that they normally would have had on their checklist that were important, not like dumb things, like, for them, we talk about height or like what, not like physical traits, but just like partnership characteristics. Yeah. They really wanted the kids really, really badly. And so they made those exceptions. And I will tell you that 5 years in, when those kids are starting to grow up a little bit and you start to see the cracks in the marriage and things like that, no parent, mother or father I've ever heard say, like, I regret having kids. No, they love their kids, right? They do. It's a different type of love. Mm-hmm. They can't imagine their lives without it, but they are able to realistically say, if I could go back and make a decision about the type of partner I was picking, maybe I would have chosen a little bit differently. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. People can be in divorce court hating each other for years, yet happy with the DNA that they combine to make these children. It's very rare that you'd be like, oh my God, I wish I had kids
and
with
I
someone,
would say that
which is weird, interesting.
It's weird. And I think that it also depends on the type of woman that you're talking to. There are women that I've known my entire life that they feel like their mission, their purpose, internal core to who they are as a person, their purpose was to be a mom.
Right.
Those are the women that I do think more often than not choose that second option.
Yeah.
Or do they choose the third option? Be the mom and then circle back, on your own, which is no picnic anyway, have the kid or kids and then come back to, rather than use the guy for this sort of nebulous that you're kind of stuck semi-connected to this person for 50 years. I want to be a mom. You take care of that. And then in your 40s, go back and start dating again.
I mean, in the modern world, that's always an option for women that are, I think it depends on where your priorities are.
Right.
Like for me, would I love to be a mom? Absolutely. But I have learned enough in my own relationships and seeing and watching other people's relationships with and marriages with kids crumble and fall in the most epic effing fashion you've ever seen. The toll that a divorce when you have children takes on everybody involved it's really hard, and it's so common, but it's really hard on those parents too, because they love those kids so much, but the partnership is just so broken.
And they want the kids to have the family unit and everything.
They want the kids to have the family unit, but it's almost like if you go into it knowing that partner isn't the right partner for you, you're kind of knowing that you're
setting it up for failure.
That's almost a likelihood that you're picking. And so to me, I would rather, for whatever reason, whether you want God, universe, whatever, however things are going to shake out, I would rather at least give myself the best chance possible, or give those kids the best chance possible, if I can have them with the best partner. And I use that word partner. I know it's like a really popular word to use instead of like a husband. We don't say like husband as much anymore, right?
No,
like the language has changed.
Yeah, it has.
But I say partner because when I look around and I see the successful marriages, they are truly partners. I mean, there's not one person that's carrying 90% of the load and the other person's carrying 10%. It's a true partnership. They are working together. They are a team. That's where I see it work, not just in the relationship, but for the kids also. Right. So I'd rather give myself the best chance possible. If I fought so hard to get here for the happiness, why would I give it up to live with somebody and create a life and create children on this planet with somebody that I'm not crazy about?
And that is the unfair advantage that the man has, like it or not, that he can dick around, for lack of a better term.
Totally.
Yeah. Until he's 51 before being like, I'm ready to have some kids now, and there's plenty of women who will be like, okay, I'll date that guy and have kids with him.
But it's almost like women have to face the scarcity mindset,
right? Whereas
men don't necessarily have to do that.
Right.
But I would rather choose my own personal internal happiness, because you could get struck by lightning. So you could get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
You gotta
agree.
live every
live
day,
every
single day. So why would you give up? And if you choose option B, who's to say you couldn't have chosen option A and had the most wonderful, beautiful life in the world, and then option B is riddled with pain?
You can't live your life with regret. I get
it.
There's choices you can make. Now, are most of your social circle married women with kids, or are you not in that?
Yeah, mine are.
And
married with kids, yeah.
And is it easy for you to look at them and like, oh my God, that's terrible parenting?
Not terrible parenting. I mean,
I do that all the time. I'm like, I would fix that in 5 seconds.
You always think you can, but I feel like it's different when you have the kid.
Not at all. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like, I hang out with them for a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta go. Like, exhausted after an hour. It's just me, and we're on two different. I'm not really in a rush to have kids, and I think it comes down to like what you want. Like you said, a lot of people.
I'm not giving up the abs yet.
No, I have anxiety about that.
You could be those girls that are pregnant in the gym, like
you'll be like, I worked too hard to give this up for 9 months.
It's just not something that I'm like, and I know like I do feel a certain stress because I know we are getting older, but like a lot of women right now at our age are like, okay, I really, really like want to have kids, and like feel a really like dire pressure that they need to go out and they need to find this person, and will kind of give that person, I guess, a little bit of lead if they don't like check all their boxes or what have you, and they'll kind of settle. But like, I don't feel like that at all. I do feel somewhat pressure, but I'm kind of at the mindset, if it happens, it happens. And if not, like,
So most of the guys that most of the women in your demo are going to date are in their 30s and 40s. What advice would you give those men to deal with 30-something women that they might have been different from 20-something women, other than the fact that you are a little more independent and headstrong, not necessarily in a bad way, but, you know,
advice
what can this
to
group
a
of
man?
boys, this group of guys, in your 20s, your voice is probably like, just sober up a tad, but 30s and 40s to deal with this unique equipment that is the 30-something women. Yeah. What advice do you give the 30 and 40-something guys that they would help better understand you? Because that's the biggest challenge, is they have no fucking idea what you're thinking.
Learn how to communicate. I feel like a lot of guys do not know how to communicate.
And be clear about what it is.
The communicator calling the communicator black.
Yes.
Yeah. What does that mean? This whole show is about confidence and communication at the end of the day. What is that? We can't even compliment you anymore. We get in trouble for that.
Please
That's
compliment us. That's
They're
not
like, oh,
true.
you look so pretty. What, do I look like bad every other day?
Yeah, I know. So we can't even go. We can't say that. I made the joke, and it's not even a joke, on our signature lines rather than pronouns. Give me your preferred compliments. Like, if you want to be like pretty, hot, cute, beautiful, put that in there, and then we know.
I'll take them all.
Right. But a lot of guys, it can only go wrong. So we can't even. So you were around in a point in life when we were like, oh my God, you're so hot, and that was fine, and you liked it. Nobody can say that anymore. You're like, oh yeah, still say that. I think it's a
time and place. Like, if some guy just walks up to me and I'm working out in the gym and he takes his headphones on, he interrupts one of my sets, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, you are hot. I would be like, I'm going to chokehold
That's
you.
his
I'd be like, I'm going to punch you in the face.
He's shooting his shot. What is you want to wait for him to see you at Target?
Learn how to shoot your shot.
You want him to wait outside the gym? That seems worse.
No, yeah, that's
right.
Super
So
creepy.
take him out. He's like, I have one shot.
The words you use. Strike up a conversation. Like,
you want me to
You're doing a good job.
You want me to spot you?
Do that tricep. Yeah. Do you need a spot? And then we'd be like, ew, get away from me.
You're like, ew.
You're
right. See, that's what I'm saying. He has no idea when to say it, how to say it, who to say it to. So I'm looking for a little, you say communicate better. The fuck does that mean?
Do you mean in terms of like
anything, whether in a relationship, asking you out, first date, what can the boys do better that you're like, if they just did this, turn the dial up 20% better on this, everything would be better?
So it's so different now because we have social media, right? And I get all the time, and I'm going to say creeps, but they go into the DMs, and I got one the other day, and I was just telling Lauren, I was like, this drives me absolutely crazy. And I don't know why it does, but it annoys me. They're like, they'll say something like about fitness, and I'll like their comment, and they'll be like, it'd be a great, topic to talk over a date. Literally, I've never had a conversation before with them, and it's only the second message that they've sent to me. Why does that make me so angry? I'm like, you don't know me. You're basically only judging by, obviously, how I look. And I think it annoys me because
you're only judging them by how they look.
I said I don't even know you.
You post so much more content than just.
But you're not going to know them until you have a date. So
that's what he said. He goes, you don't.
Right, because a lot of women will be like, he messaged me 7 times and he didn't ask me out. So the men hear this too, like, what would you like me to do? You don't want me to come up to you and tell you you're hot. You don't want me to just slide into your DMs twice and say, let's have a date. We're in no man's land, so they're back to video games and porn, these guys, and you guys are alone.
He goes, well, that's what a date is. And I was like, I don't do that. I
don't do that.
I don't, like, he didn't even try to get to know me first. And
he did. He said, let's go on a date, which is the very definition of trying to get to know you.
That's what he said.
Right.
I just don't.
How would he get to know you? By what?
Just like asking me questions.
He wants
online.
to do that face to face. You got to get out in the real world.
She doesn't want to. I think
I'm not there.
Yeah, your mindset.
We used to be able to just walk up to you and ask you the exact same question. Now you want this sort of artificial barrier between you to answer these questions.
Maybe I'm the problem.
You're definitely the problem.
Right. We're both saying the same thing to you. Yes.
I know. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you want them to communicate better. He's trying to communicate to you face to face, and you're like, whoa, back off. Stay on the device. We're only going to communicate through Instagram.
I live in a maze, a mouse maze. I have walls up for sure, but
I think that I kind of agree with Brian. I just think that I think that you're a little
Richard?
bit, your perspective of anybody that reaches out is you're immediately skeptical of them.
For sure.
And that's only because starting at
line that I've said in my life here on this show. Day one is the women look for red flags and the men look for green lights.
And that's because I've been in so many shitty relationships, I think. And that's not fair to them.
No, you got to get rid of that baggage.
Yeah.
Or been like, you can have a little bit of guard up, but give them the chance to prove you right.
If he had said something really funny, I feel like maybe you would have.
Funniness gets me. Not
that
like
would have entertained
cute, lovey.
you.
I'm like, ugh.
That would have entertained you. I think if he had said something funny, I think you would have responded back. But also, you're talking about.
You want to split some carbs? Like, see, that's why the women are like, if the funny gets me, they don't know what you think is funny, because that's subjective too.
It sure is. There's no perfect pill. Like, there's no magic pill. There's no right answer for every guy and every girl. But I would say for her, like, somebody who's a good communicator and sense of humor, like, and by good communicator, that is also, though, kind of the equivalent of like a 1-2 punch. Like, there was no lead up. There was no, like, you know, trying to get to know her in any form or fashion. Like, how's your day going? Like, hey, like, I'm this person. He's there. It's a random person from social media.
Right.
So, like, that's a completely.
Well, what did we used to be the random person in the bar. So
much
at some
harder,
point we're all
much
random.
more difficult. Actually, the rejection is a lot easier to handle on a woman's end, not in person.
I know that, which is why it's become way too easy to just nope, because it's harder to do that, which means that guy had an extra beat or 5 seconds or 60 seconds where you had to sort of hear him out, and he misses that. But again, the women guys are the same way. They want to just sit there and be pen pals forever and hope you'll send them a
Well, but
nudie
that
pic.
was also back in the day when girls would give the fake numbers. Like, you would go up to a girl at a bar, you would hit on her in a bar, and she would seem, you know, kind of into it and give you the wrong number.
I just assumed,
because then they call that number. And if you give them the wrong number and your phone doesn't ring, and you're like,
I know.
No, I'm talking about back in the day.
This idea, back in the day, you used to go out with a guy just because he had a pen and a napkin at 2:00 in the morning. Not only did he write your phone up, he also used to have to pick you up. He used to be like, you're going to pick me up. Here's my address. You would give that guy a shot. You wouldn't have 6 friends on speed dial. You wouldn't be like, I'm only going to do things that take 15 minutes to get out. You would commit to the date to find out if you liked somebody.
Sure.
We don't do that anymore because you watch too much Dateline and Lifetime movies, and you think you've brought a lot of the 20s. Most likely, everybody's an asshole or didn't work out, and so statistically, you look at all that. You only need the last one to work out. You know, you only need the next one to work out, which could be like, you got to keep moving forward. I feel like,
I'm the opposite. I used to give the people who didn't deserve a chance, who didn't do it, I would give like everybody a chance. Like when you talk about
married one of them,
when you talk about the difference between dating in your 20s and 30s, my looking back and being really honest with myself, my only criteria was like, if you liked me, I was like, okay, cool, because That's what
I've always said.
Right?
My only deal breaker is that you don't like me.
Exactly.
Everything else is negotiable.
Which is such like that's such a tough mentality when you look back, and I'm trying to be a little kinder to myself about the person that I was back then. But now I still have that like open-heartedness, and I'm still like a little bit more open. I'm just a little bit more discerning about who I let into my physical space. I may entertain, I'm not the immediate shutdown, like block if somebody says something to me online or anything like that for the most part. It depends. I sent you those screenshots. You want to know what he said? He was like, maybe we can both make money off each other and try to send like a dick pic situation.
That's the
problem. So I get a message from a guy on social media.
Yeah.
And I'm private, and a guy sent a message, and he was like, hey, I didn't answer because I didn't know who I couldn't figure out who he was. 2 days later, he sends me another message, and he's like, so what's up? And I was like, I'm sorry, do we know each other? And he said, no, but I'm sure we should, I definitely want to. So I click his profile, I look through, he's married.
Oh.
And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
That's a red flag.
That is like, waved from the top of a lighthouse. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what is this? And I was like, no thanks, not interested. And he's like, but why not? We can make so much money with like a dick emoji or whatever. Like basically propositioning me to do some type of like OnlyFans or porn. Right.
Oh.
So I immediately blocked, deleted, stuff like that.
It's mildly flattering.
So for unfortunate,
thank you, but
for all I know, it was her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or it was a fake profile.
Yeah.
Whatever. So for all those, the unfortunate part for men is they are going up against a stream of people that act like that.
Yeah.
So when you want to talk about
Correct.
us putting up walls.
I agree. The thing, though, that is the bigger barrier to that when you get in your 30s and your 40s is your life is much more fulfilled without him.
You don't
need him. You have your friends and your job and your self-esteem and your activities. You have a little bit more money than you used to, and blah blah blah. That you don't need him. And so for him, the bullseye he's got to hit to get into your world. It's like shooting at a 12-foot basket versus a 10-foot basket because he has to figure out a way to enhance your day-to-day, which is much harder to enhance.
Guys love competition. Let the games begin.
I suppose so.
Guys do. They really do.
Yeah.
They love competition.
As long as you're open to the competition.
I think one of the problems, for me, is finding the time because we're not getting any younger and you still feel that pressure. Like, I feel like a lot of the time that, and this is just me, and this sounds bad, but I don't want to, quote unquote, waste my time. Like, I feel like as soon as I get to that date, if I know that we are not going to connect, I do not want to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours there.
Much less 2 years.
Exactly.
Right. That's
so
true.
It's like if we meet, coffee,
what's your ideal
whatever.
date? The coffee date? You like the coffee date over the
No, I
drink?
hate that too.
You like the drinks date.
I
get ice cream.
Ice cream.
Oh, she loves ice cream.
Yeah. But that's kind of how I feel. Like, I'm at a point right now where I feel like I would be wasting my time. Like, you hear people who go out on 99 dates and then they find that one. I'm like, I go on Bumble and I'm like, I don't have the time. I feel like it's just wasted energy.
So
that's the other challenge, though. You don't want to, in your 30s, 40s, whatever, you don't want to waste 2, 3, 4 years on betting on the wrong horse.
Sure.
But you also have to give it enough time to work through that that sort of thing. Which could happen date one. It could happen 6 months in, where if you just got through that storm, everything will be great. Yeah. We're not willing to do that because the first sign, like, oh, this doesn't feel perfect. Next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Well, I don't even know what perfect is, though.
Exactly.
I guess there's no such
thing.
And
I think that it depends. I hate to say it. It really does depend on how much work you've done on yourself. If you've done enough work on yourself, you kind of know you're not I know that I am not showing up to a date.
Yeah, but we have standards. We have. I'll speak for me, but my standards.
What are you trying to say? What?
For both of us. I don't want to speak on behalf of you, but our standards are a lot higher now. Like, the things that minus one person that'll probably be on our 30 and he's but they're set higher now. So, and I don't know if that's
you want someone who's the cherry on top. You want someone who's a little more settled either in who they are or what they want out of life in their career. If you can answer the questions honestly about whether or not you even want to have kids, I would say for women in their 30s, although it's not always at the forefront of our mind, that's not true. That's a myth. It's not always at the front of our mind because we are so like loving of our lives more. I would say in your 30s, you're more confident, and we have so much fun. I mean, we really do in our 30s, like just as different kind of fun than in your 20s, but we love to have fun. We love all of that. It's not always about, I need to reproduce. I need to have a kid. I need to have a kid. Yeah. It's not always that focused, but
that actually gives me anxiety.
For Britt, Britt makes a good point.
Taylor Swift's back out there in her 30s, single again.
I mean,
it's the best. So
time.
is Jennifer Aniston never got married to the right person. Like, and I'm not saying that that's like something we should look up to and look for, but she was the most beautiful woman in the world for 20 years.
She's no picnic.
Potentially. I would imagine that what goes on behind closed doors between all of those people, there's always a reason for it, you know.
And you don't know what's in, but
you never
that
know.
being said, I think the thing that you probably can tell the guys, what I think you guys are looking for, guys, the collective, you want someone who has either done the work or is doing the work.
Work on your
or at the very least knows that he has work to do.
Any of those
as
three.
Men in our 20s and 30s, we are so used to not showing any weakness, any vulnerability, any that we think we have to never reveal any of our shit, that when we do, you guys are actually relieved because you're like, oh, I know there's something there. Save me the trouble of finding it and tell me what it is you have been working on to be better. I think that goes a long way.
Totally. And I'll support somebody going through that process as long, like we had an episode that we were talking about like dating and like, what's your non-negotiables? My number one non-negotiable was somebody who is committed to working on themselves because that work never ends.
So therapy's a plus.
It can be therapy. Absolutely. If you don't have, in this day and age, it's so accessible.
I know.
There's no way that you don't have shit that you're dealing with from your childhood or a breakup or a girl that broke your heart when you were in high school. Or, we talked about this last time that we were in the studio about how men are suffering from like a severe lack of real friendships with other men. Those things, like,
they can't process. The girls rally around her and you'll take her for a weekend, like, fuck him, he's an asshole, whatever. The men scatter. They're like, ooh, I don't want to be around him.
Totally.
And it may not even be a relationship. It may be somebody who just rejected him at the gym.
Yeah.
Or something that he's carries this sadness or hatred or anger around with him, and it manifests and might come out in a marriage.
They compartmentalize it.
And they bleed all over everybody else at some point. So commitment to working on yourself in some form or fashion, I would say is in the list of non-negotiables for both of us.
Yeah, I've dated a lot of guys that put on a front that they have nothing wrong, that they were perfect, and like deep down inside, like I knew that things that they were doing or saying to me was a reflection of how they were feeling. And that goes back to like that gaslighting and all that stuff.
And then it comes out onto kids. So if you choose to have kids with an unhealed or somebody who's not even aware that they have some issues that they need to work on, even if it's just with a friend, like I'm not saying every guy has to go to therapy, but like if you're going to pretend like you don't have shit going on,
or at least be able to say like, listen, I tend to do this, or I wish I didn't do this, or like, I'm sorry. Saying I'm sorry, people who do that has a huge value too.
Yeah. But that's what you meant by communication, like being able to actually like express yourself and like being a good communicator.
Express your feelings. You don't get that with, I feel like you don't get that.
It's hard. We're taught not to.
Yeah.
All right. In the interest of time, this is your first time on this podcast. We will have you back again before you get to the 40N thing, I promise. We play something called Worst Date or First Date. So you either have to give us the absolute worst date you've ever been on or the greatest first date you've ever went on. Your choice. Start with you, Brett.
Oh, God.
When was the last time you went on a date?
Well, this can go back 20 years if you want.
Last time you went on a date.
The worst date you've ever been on.
Worst date.
Or Em, you can jump in if you got one in the holster.
That's it's such a hard question when you've dated so many people. I'm just kidding. Let me go through the Rolodex. Hold on.
This is pathetic.
Because you don't have a bad one, or you don't have a good one, or either all neither.
I guess I haven't dated. I'm trying to like really
an ex-girlfriend of mine right now is writing her memoir. I don't think I'm in the book, which is really insulting both ways. Like I wasn't an asshole enough, or I wasn't memorable enough. It's insulting two ways.
Oh God. What was the one I sent you in the parking lot the other day?
Was it the guy that lied about his height?
No. That wasn't even a date. Oh my God.
Because you left immediately.
Shit. This is so bad.
All right, and jump in. This is dead air.
So I wouldn't say it's the best date, but it was a really, really good one for me. I went on a date with a guy. He's a wonderful guy. I suggested, so I like to do activities for the most part. Either it's a coffee date or like I like to do some type of activity.
Axe throwing.
Exactly. Like an axe throwing so we went to Topgolf, and when we got there, it was like kind of awkward at first. We got a couple drinks, we're like playing a little bit, and he kind of pulls me aside and he's like, so you recommended this date. I thought you were going to be like good at Topgolf. And I was like, oh no, I am freaking horrible. The reason why I'm here is because I think it's really fun. And I just want to keep trying to hit balls at the driving range. But we ended up just like having so much fun with the experience of just the two of us. And like, I just felt like I got to know him so well as a person. And like he gave me a really nice kiss goodnight and I left. And I just remember feeling like on cloud 9 when I left. And I felt like he rolled with the punches a little bit because I had kind of suggested that as the date. And like, so he didn't really have control over that. And he kind of let me do that part of the date, like pick where we were going and what we were going to do. And we had so much fun. It was a fantastic date.
Good for you. And I like that. Doing something badly, bowling, ice skating, and karaoke. If you do them terribly, they're fun. And if you do them well, they're fun.
100%.
Yeah, just saying like, I'm just going to miss the ball at Topgolf. That's probably better and better at icebreaker than if you're just hitting 300-yard drives.
Totally. So, and it also gave him not me. I didn't do it that way to be like this damsel in distress, but he was pretty good. And so it gave him an opportunity.
Here's how you hold the shaft.
Exactly. Here's the shaft. Yeah. Let me come behind you. Let me squeeze from behind you. Let me show you how to, no, but it allowed us to kind of be ourselves, but also just like explore like doing this activity together. And it was a freaking awesome date.
Good.
So you know who you
Plus
are
the
if you're
kiss.
listening.
There you go.
I guess I'm realizing that I need to go on more dates.
Let's
Maybe
go.
we can just.
What about your worst date?
Yeah.
I was in a relationship from like 10 years. I can give a story, a really good worst date story.
Yeah, good.
That's
why we're here.
I'm excited.
Okay. This is a good one. New Year's Eve, my sister, we had a big party up in Toronto, and my boyfriend of like 5 years came, and we had been on and off for like 5 years, and a bunch of my friends were there. And he ended up getting mad at me. This is a very toxic relationship. He ended up getting mad at me, saying that I was paying attention to my friends too much and not enough time to him. He ended up leaving New Year's Day and flying to downtown Toronto and spent the entire
He left you?
He left me, yeah.
Oh.
Did you talk to him again?
Spending too much time with my friends. So that's probably why I'm not dating right now. Yeah, I was scarred. I was like, what did I do?
Were your friends hot?
Of course.
Okay,
all my friends are pretty.
There you go. All right, tell everybody about your podcast and how they can find it, and anything else you want to do.
So you can follow us at 30 and on Instagram, but most importantly, if you want to listen to us talk more about dating, relationships, life in your 30s, career moves, all that jazz, you can listen to us on Apple, on Spotify, anywhere that you can get your podcasts rolling. Also, don't forget to follow Britt on Instagram at Britt.Heyne, Britt Heyne. And yeah, that's how you can get to know us a little better.
Good.
We're going to start a dating
Don't slide
dating
into your DMs.
Yeah, don't slide into Britt's DMs.
And don't go to him and say.
Don't just walk up to me and say,
don't
I'm
say you're
hot
hot
away.
at the gym while she's doing crunches. This was good, you guys. As far as us, like, share, follow. Please review this podcast and the 30 and podcast. Your reviews mean a lot in the podcasting ecosystem. Shoot us an email, greatlovedebate@gmail.com, if you got questions, thoughts, concerns, or opinions about life in your 30s or anything else. Go to greatlovedebate.com. Live tour schedule. We are going back for a few more shows, not as many as we used to. Good Nights Comedy Club in Raleigh, North Carolina. We've never done a show in Raleigh. We're going to do that. And finally, our first show in 6 years in the Valley of the Sun in Phoenix. We'll be at the Tempe Improv. Tickets will be on sale at greatlovedebate.com. Probably by the time you listen to this, because as always, at The Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.